Hey guys, welcome back to the No One Asked podcast. It's week 8, episode 8. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Brock.
And I'm Ethan. If you guys aren't following our Instagram yet, it is no one asked underscore podcast. That's right. We flipped who's doing the intro this week to change it up. So
Switching it all up.
Yep.
Didn't see it coming.
Exactly. The old switcheroo, the old unders play. Speaking of unders plays, kick us off with the NRL, Brock.
The NRL. Final weeks before the grand final. Grand final coming in this week. Dally M's currently going down as we speak. Payne Haas has been gotten the Rookie of the Year, so congratulations to him. We'll see who else gets the awards tonight, though. We'll see. Potentially we'll get some of the details while we're recording, but might miss it, so guess just check up on that.
Who's your tip for Dally M winner?
Certainly not my tip, but I definitely see Tedesco winning it, which honestly, I don't know if you agree, but I think this has probably been his worst year for the past few. So I think if he is to win Dally M, he should have a previous year, but I don't really know who deserves to win it. I don't think there's been anyone outstanding throughout the entire year. Like, you know, you start off the year and Mitchell Pearce and Cameron Munster, like players like that were just dominant and excelling. And then, you know, coming to the closure, you know, they weren't performing at their best. But I'd probably still say my tip's Cameron Munster, but I'm a biased Storm supporter, so what can I say?
No, that's fair. That's probably a good pick. I'm probably just going to go Tedesco for the safe bet since I've only really started watching the NRL in the last 8 rounds. So I'll probably go Teddy for the safe bet, but I mean, yeah, I don't think, he's still performing, but I just think, do you think it's just that we've seen him perform that well on so many different platforms now that, we're sort of just over it? And this might not be, a regression or anything. It's just that, he's done this sort of season before and you know what I mean? We're sort of just used to him. Or has he dipped?
I definitely see what you mean. And I just think this was the year that he could have, obviously he was at the top of the league pretty much, but really broken out, and, you know, there was no Slater going to be there. So it was a time he really just dominated and was the clear number one fullback. I keep going to say wide receiver or something. Caught up in this NFL talk.
Yeah.
But yeah, the number one fullback. But I just feel you know, prior to this season, I'd never seen him drop a ball or anything. He was just the safest man on the field. He did anything you needed him to. But this year, I just don't feel the same way. Even, you know, the Storm Roosters game, he dropped about 3 balls, which is just so unlike him of previous years. But, you know, watching him throughout the year, that's just what he kind of does now, which, you know, I think was a surprise after how dominant he was over the first few years of his career.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I'd forgotten about he was doing that on Saturday night. It was Saturday night that game was on, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he looks good at contact. Has he carried any injuries this year? Any hemi injuries or anything?
Not that I've been aware of. I'm sure he's probably had some niggly injuries, but nothing that was too serious, I don't think.
'Cause he just looked afraid to jump at parts on Saturday night. He didn't want to, I don't know, test something or injure something. And I think that probably contributed to the drop balls, and it probably has I wouldn't be surprised if the dude's hamstrings are worn out. He runs 28 Ks every 10 minutes or something, so...
Yeah.
But
yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah, there was he did drop a fair few balls on Saturday night. It was pretty disappointing, to be honest. Or let them bounce before it got to him for, I don't know, that's the first time I've ever seen him do that, so.
Yeah, I've seen a few games here and there, consistently I think I've seen him drop a ball every game I've watched him play almost, which...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like I said, previous years, he never, I've never seen him drop a ball until this year, and it's just become a common occurrence now, so... I don't know, maybe there's something up with his mental state and he's, you know, just not there 100% still, but he's still dominant. He's still probably the best fullback running around.
Yeah.
Can't take that away from him either.
Yeah, exactly. Pappenhausen looked good on Saturday night, though.
Yeah, he did at parts. Some stages he, you know, you could definitely tell he was a rookie and, you know, nominated for Rookie of the Year this year. You could tell he just didn't have that experience, that game experience in those tough situations, and made some bad decisions. You know, at one point, I think around the 50th or 60th minute mark, he kicked on the second, and it was just like, we're putting the pressure on. Why are you giving the ball away? And, there was a few things like that. But outside that, he was fantastic, like great run meters and everything, until he obviously copped his head knock.
Yeah. The Melbourne fight back was good. You sort of expect it, but the way the Roosters... What was the score at halftime again? My memory is so shit.
It was 8-0.
8-0, yeah. See, because I thought the Roosters would just... I don't know. I knew they'd probably go into cruise control, but I didn't expect them to... Because they sort of looked on top of Melbourne in my eyes in the first half. Not like dominating, but they looked like they could, probably keep Melbourne to 4, and Melbourne fought back pretty well. So it was a decent game.
Okay, so I have a question. And for anyone at home, Ethan and I, both supporters of Storm and Roosters, have not spoken about this once at all.
What is it?
And I'm curious why.
What do you mean?
Why haven't we spoken of it since this point? Why was it not brought up?
What, the game?
Yeah.
I have no idea. Why didn't we bring this up?
No idea. So, I didn't bring it up because I was waiting for you to say something about the poor refereeing.
Oh.
I was waiting for you to hit back and go, you know what? I'm going to eat my words that I spoke weeks ago and say I'd rather lose in a fair game than win in a unfair game.
Yeah, the refereeing was pretty shit. I'm actually not going to lie to you.
Yeah, it was rough at times, but, Roosters, I walked away from it. Like, I watched it with Maddie, and, it was a good hit out. That first half was very one-sided, but even, the second half, like you said, Storm had a great fight back, but Roosters' defense was just exceptional. Like, we didn't ever really look that threatening on offense, just because the Roosters' defense was so good, and obviously it's a different field to be playing on, as the commentators kept mentioning, and our kicks were going wayward. But I think, like I've mentioned on the podcast, I think that also came back to the fact that we have Jerome Hughes playing in the halves, and not Brody Croft or someone. Like, we've got a fullback that's filling in there for unknown reasons, and you could definitely see it in this game.
Yeah, you're right. I think it definitely shone out in the kicking game. And even Cam Smith looked rattled by the field, and I'm not surprised. Like, you're used to having the boundary and where the fans are sitting right there on the field, and then, it'd obviously mess with your peripherals and stuff. So I think Melbourne's missed kicks in the first half, and then, the refereeing in the second half was pretty shit. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yep. All right, so I think we just kind of run through bits and pieces. I'm sure we'll probably pick apart a couple of these games just because there's only 2 of them to look at. Straight off the mark, 19 seconds in, what do you think of the small brawl that went on?
Okay, I actually thought it was pretty sick, and I liked that. I thought that both of them deserved to get punished, and I mean, a sin bin probably was a bit unnecessary when it's 10 seconds into the game, but I mean, they both got the fair punishment, and it was just, you just knew something was going to happen because this was last year's grand final rematch, and it was just going to boil over eventually. And I'm actually glad it sort of went then, instead of you get to the 60-minute mark and there's a fight and then both teams sort of cool off. So I'm glad it's sort of, the emotion come out of it early, and then the game just was played on.
We didn't see it for the rest of the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But do you think it was I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to say my point of view. I don't understand how 4 punches thrown, 2 connecting, and a shove to the face is an equal punishment.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, don't get me wrong, no issues with sin binnings happening. And like you said, it made the rest of the game good because there was no more emotion in it, for a large portion of the game. But I don't see how that's a equal punishment. Like, if it's a yellow card for a shove to the face, surely it's like potentially a red for 2 connecting punches and 2 missed. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
No, that's a fair point. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I forgot a lot about this game because I sort of watched the Wallabies and the Wallabies-Wales game, and that sort of flushed out a lot of my memory of this game. But yeah, no, you're right. I think it was because, wasn't it just because the refs handled it on the field? They didn't go to TMO and see how many punches. It was Crichton, wasn't it?
No, it was, I can't remember his name, but it was one of the forwards.
Yeah, right.
that did it.
Because they just handled it on the field, didn't they? Just straight away. They didn't look at a replay.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if they had a...
Oh, that's the thing. There's no TMO or replay to look at on the field, but yeah, continue.
Yeah, I just think if they had have seen it, like... I think the first couple of replays that Channel 9 showed didn't make it look that bad. It looked pretty even, but then when they slowed it right down... And yeah, you're right. There was like 4 or 5 punches thrown before the Melbourne guy even retaliated, so it was pretty unfair, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know. I just saw it as, you know what? Like, the Roosters guy was in his face and whatever, which is just part of the game, you know, like we've said before. And then it's kind of like a push in the face to get off him, which, I don't know, you also go back to an open hand to the face is now a yellow card, but is there a difference between a push and a slap type thing?
Yeah.
So I know about that. And then, yeah, like you said, you couldn't really see in the moment. You just knew those punches thrown. But it's the first one that connects. The second one, he just tips him before Solomona like turns around and is just like, I'm out. Like, I'm not actually here to fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you can take your punishment. And I don't know. I just looked at that, comparing a shove to the face and punches, and Roosters got the better side of it because they got the penalty and the 2 points. I just kind of stood back like, well, we're on the back foot from the get-go, but yeah, what can you do?
Yeah, there's not much, is there, really? I mean, I think if the refs actually if it was like TMO and rugby and the refs actually had seen it, I think the Roosters guy would have got punished way more. Because you're right, it's whatever it is. I was going to say Salmonella. What's his name?
Solomona.
Solomona pulled out of it. So, and I think the Roosters getting 2 points straight up so early in the game actually settled us and made us, because that just gave us a cushion for the rest of the half. Like, we already knew we were up 2.
For sure.
If we scored, we'd be up 8. And, you know, every time you guys score, if we score again, we're already up by 2 if we get the conversion. So,
yeah, exactly. It was a fantastic point for you guys because it was like 2 minutes in now after, you know, it all got resolved. 2 minutes in, it's 12 on 12. You haven't lost anything there. You're 2 points up and now receiving the kickoff rather than, you know, taking it. Like, it was just a complete win for you guys, which I know I'm a Storm supporter, but it just didn't seem fair.
yeah. No, it wasn't fair. And I think the refs did a fairly good job of actually keeping the Roosters in the game. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, as a Roosters fan, I can sit here and say that I genuinely thought that the refs were giving us a fair rub of the green the whole night. So
Yeah.
And I wonder why.
And
I mean, like, if the Storm make it,
okay.
it's the... So you go. Sorry.
My perspective, and you know, I'll ask the question if you agree, because I guess we surround ourselves with a bunch of Queenslanders who share this opinion, but it's kind of like a situation of everyone wants to see a Sydney team in it because it's a New South Wales competition.
Yeah.
And that's what they got at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like, whether that's 100% right or not, who knows? But I don't know, in my eyes, it kind of makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, you're right. I think, you know, a New South Wales dominant competition is going to want New South Wales teams in there. But at the end of the day, do people from Newcastle and shit really care that much if the Roosters make another grand final? You know what I mean? Like, instead of the Storm? Like, what sort of...
Well, I think it goes back to, and it's not the exact same scenario, but it was kind of like a huge disinterest in the grand final when it was Cowboys versus Broncos.
Yeah, right.
Like, Queenslanders thrived off it, but I can't speak for the New South Wales, but for the few people I do know that live down there, none of them cared to watch it. Like, they were just like, who cares? It's two teams we hate. We don't want to see who wins it. So I think it was a little bit of that. And, you know, Canberra's not exactly Queensland or anything, but it's not Sydney. And then, you know, your other option was going to be Roosters or Storm. So there was potential that it wasn't going to be another New South Wales team. And then whether that's true or not, I don't know. But it feels like it makes sense because that first half especially was very one way.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
And I know if you agree, even like the, was it Boyd Corner who got the try?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Tupou goes up and is trying to get rid of the ball. And I don't know whether you agree with me or not, but he lost it 3 times, like it bobbling around the place, like kind of half lost it, trying to get it out, regathered, half lost it, regathered, half lost it. before finally getting it out. I don't know if the rules tremendously change when it gets to the goal line. Like, I know some things do, like you're allowed to strip on more than a one-on-one situation in the goal line. But it's like in my eyes, that's a loose carry, him losing the ball like that, and it happened 3 times before him able to get it out, and it was completely fine. So, and like they let it go, as in it was completely fine, which, I don't know, in my eyes, I don't know if you agree, but it kind of felt like we went into halftime, like Storm went into halftime being down 8 points that kind of shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, man. I definitely agree. I thought watching it, I thought, wow, that's a great try, but it's going to get called off because obviously my knowing of the NRL rules aren't solid, but I know, I've seen enough games with their loose carry rule and shit. I thought, yeah, that's whatever. It looked good, but I don't think he had control of it. And who was it? Bloody the ex-Knights guy, Andrew Johns or someone, going off about someone's thumb or whatever and how it should have been a try. And was that last week?
No, that was the try after. That was one of the tries that did get called off. I think Tedesco got a thumb on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which he did, to be
Yeah,
fair.
he did.
Makes it a knock on.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that was in the second half.
Yeah, and like you said, I think there was definitely a bit of New South Wales favouritism from like the commentators, probably the refs too.
Oh,
but, like you said, and like I tried to say before, what difference does it make? Because the Raiders are in there, so I think a lot of people were going to root for the Raiders as the underdog, no matter who made it out of these 2 teams. So what do they get out of, like helping to push the Roosters through? I'm not saying they helped the Roosters win, but they definitely gave them that try there that we're talking about, the Tupou offload try, and then, the penalty from the very one-sided fight at the start.
Yeah.
It's just iffy. And when you think back on it like this and you actually look at it, it does make it seem unfair because at the moment as a Roosters fan, I was cheering.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But when you look back and think about it, you think about how messed up it is that, your team just got carried to another grand final appearance.
Definitely got the right rub of the green. And it's not like you guys don't deserve to be there at all. Like,
oh, yeah, no.
You guys are the best team in the competition. Like, I'm not scared to admit that. Like, that's just the case. So in that regards, you deserve to be there, but that's not the game, you want to go in by, in my eyes anyway. But yeah, like you said about the commentators, it was so one-sided that, it sucked listening to the game just for the commentators. Like, it was, 3 or 4 commentators that were all supporting Roosters.
Yeah.
And it was so one-sided without the reffing. It was just like, oh, yep, here we go again. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Did you watch it on Fox or did you watch it on Channel 9?
Channel 9 I watched it on, which was a bit of a different experience for once for me. I'm normally a Fox boy, but...
Yeah, I flicked it over to Channel 9 from Fox. If you thought the Channel 9 broadcast was bad for favoritism and shit, you should have heard the Foxtel one.
Wow.
Yeah,
okay.
It was... I had to turn it off, man. I can't stand their commentary team. They carry on like a bunch of bloody schoolboys. I'm gonna go off here for a little bit on Fox, but I just think it's terrible when, a ref makes a decision that's in the rule books and you have 2 old boys sitting in the commentary box and they go like, that's not the game. The game's gone soft. And they go on and on about it for 2 minutes. They're not even commentating on the game. They're just talking about how the game's gone soft. And then, they get up someone for they get up the bunker for a bunker decision, or they get up a ref for missing something, and it's just so annoying. I hated it, and the favoritism was so blatant on there too. You could tell they'd put like $5,000 multis on the Roosters to win. And I mean, the Channel 9 commentary team was no better either. Bloody Gus Gould and everyone wanting them to win with everything they had.
Yeah.
So it just gets annoying. It's just...
But I think, it comes back to the fact, like we said, it's a New South Wales competition to begin with. And, all the old boys and stuff who are the people, I don't know, I guess we looked up to.
Yeah.
90% of them are all New South Wales players who played in those teams, whether it was Parramatta or Roosters or whoever. Like, that's where the heart of it comes from. And I think we're going to start to see a change finally, because, the majority of people who are in, analysts and stuff coming in now are Slater and JT, and I think Cronk's probably going to be lined up there potentially. And, it's going to be very Queensland dominated now, but although there's still plenty of New South Wales running around, like they're the heart of the competition. So there's plenty of them still there.
And I also think that it's got to do with, I think the way that these like media outlets pick their broadcast teams and stuff is on how personifiable, I don't know, how like what the personality of the ex-players are. And I think a lot of the Queensland guys are a lot nicer than the New South Wales generation that they played against. Like I think
they're just a lot more respected.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a lot of them have very clean careers where you compare them to New South Wales, it's kind of like you just go through the list of what each player's done wrong.
Like Pierce not Pierce, he's a bad example, but you know what I mean? Like
No, Pierce is a good example.
Yeah, like Pierce played against, I can remember him playing against those guys in like the early 10s. And you think about like Jared Haynes, another example too. Like there was a whole
Josh Dugan, like that year they won it was just like a team full of grubs, I guess. Like
yeah, no, you're right.
That's what the New South Wales has kind of been for the last 10 years. It's kind of like good players, but they're extremely grubby. Like even, you look at James Malone, he's hated by a lot of people because some of his antics, which you either love him or hate him for it. But yeah, it's just a lot of not well respected players compared to Queensland, who just had these long careers of premierships and origin wins and whatever with no real troubles.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's just the scenario we're in. And I think it comes down to just, like you said, personality and who people liked more. And no one can really disagree that people like Smith, Cronk, Slater, JT, list goes on, were some of the greatest that have ever played in the position. And you can't really argue against that. So why wouldn't you want them on the analyst team and commentating?
Yeah, you're not wrong. I love JT, man. I couldn't hate him when he was playing for the Maroons. Everyone else I used to hate just because I watched them carve us up for like, what was it, 8 years in a row? Or was it 10 years in a row you guys won?
I think it was 8.
Yeah, 8. So that hurt my soul as a Blues fan growing up. But yeah, he's hilarious. I love the videos that come up of like the show he does with Fatty Vaughton.
Yep.
And Fatty Vaughton tells old stories and then JT's just there laughing the whole time like a school kid. So
yeah, it's hard to hate some of those players.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And, you even look to someone like Cronk, who's always been well respected, and now going to a Sydney team, he's a lot more well liked, like by that group of fans as well now. And, there's even talks, I don't know if we want to go too into detail about it, but, you look at Cameron Smith and he's so hated now versus Cronk, who's so loved. And a lot of people are like, it's because one plays for a Sydney team and one's still playing at Melbourne.
Yeah, I think it is.
Like, there's that, but it's also, just the persona. Whoever came up with the whole thing of Cameron Smith as the ref's best friend.
Yeah.
Whoever came up with that and started, branding Cameron Smith as that, definitely got everyone to hate him for sure. Like,
yeah,
that was excellent brand management.
Yeah, it was. And I think it just comes back to one of those things where like just the general public and someone who's supporting a team who's not as good as the Storm or who doesn't go on a run like the Rabbits and the Roosters do every couple of years. Like you see Cameron Smith be so good for so long and you're like, well, why can't we have someone like that? And then the jealousy just turns into hate for the player. And I think that's just what happened to Cam Smith. He's been that great for so long that people are over their jealousy for him now, and now they're just hating on him, which I still do.
Yeah.
I'm going to admit it.
Like, I think it's the same scenario, like as in the NFL. Like everyone just hates the Patriots now because they've been so dominant for the last 20 years. People just start to dislike, it's kind of like the whole saying of, if the good guy's around so long, like you eventually see the good guy become the villain.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's kind of that scenario. Like Brady and Belichick have been dominant for so long with the Patriots that people are just sick of seeing them there.
Yeah, that's it.
Like, and even I have friends that are like, we have friends that are excited to see the Storm lose just because they're sick of them winning. So, I think it's just that's the scenario we're in. But yes, I guess we should probably kick on to the other game. Apparently there was 2 games this week. I think we only saw one. But yeah, the Raiders into the grand final, which I'm sure we're both impressed with.
I am. Up the milk. I'm going from this weekend.
Yeah. Oh, you're going against your own team. You're just happy to see either team win.
Yeah, but really, I just hate teams that are meant to be good being good. You know what I mean? Like I
Yep.
said, like we just
You love the underdog story.
and like we just went through before, I just hate seeing good teams win for a long time. And also love. I got a bit of a passion for Canberra. I've never been there. I went there on a school trip, but I don't know why I like all their teams. But I think it's just the fact that the way the Raiders defend, it feels like desperation every time. But they're just such a good defensive unit. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, that's what it feels like. Everything they do, whether it's offense or defense, is just desperation, but it works for them every time. Like, Ricky Stewart just has them coached well, and you can't fault them. Like, here they are in the grand final, and arguably deservingly so.
Yeah, and I think Ricky Stewart has a big factor in, because he's been there like in their lower days, and now they're coming good. And he's a guy who I like as a coach because he goes into bat for his players, and he knows when to say like, yeah, this wasn't on me, but he'll also put his hand up for a fair bit of it, and take some shit. And I like that in a coach. And yeah, like you said, I think it's just like you just watch a team like the Roosters or the Storm, and their attack is so like planned out and executed perfectly, and their defense is so aligned and perfect.
It's clinical.
And then
everything's
and
clinical.
you watch the Raiders, and it's just as good, but it just looks like they're trying. You know what I mean? Like it just looks like it's desperate, and like we said, the desperation just makes you feel like they're putting everything into it, and that's what it looked like on Friday night. And I think the scoreline was actually a lot closer than what the game was.
Yeah, I think it was a tight game overall, but I think after the sin binning of Chance, it really brought out the Raiders' spirit, and Papali going over to pretty much seal the game late with a man down. Like, it just showed why Raiders deserve to be there, and how good they really are. But overall, I don't know if you agree, the game up to that point was very tense.
Yeah, it was.
But there wasn't really much to show for it. Like, it was a lot of back and forth without anything like, any big flaring moments or standout moments that really changed the game until that. Like, Papali just crashing through the defense and going over with a man down. Like, yeah, even at the end of the game, you see the passion come out in Croker celebrating before the game's even done.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit dirty about that. Can't get behind that. But, just the passion and the love they have for the club, and, all of them knowing how long it's taken to get there. Like, you love to support that. And I think that's why so many people are going to support the Raiders in this grand final and, want the underdogs to win.
Yeah, 100%. I think that is. The Papali run was sick. And like you said, it was a really close game. And I think the Raiders were lucky that they held on because, like, South had as many completed sets as the Raiders had sets overall. So South had way more ball and still managed to, struggle to score against the Raiders. And I think Croker's going to be a big factor in this grand final this weekend because, like, just watching the game, you can see how much they trust him in defense and how much space they let him cover in defense and how much that lets them crowd the middle and put the pressure on. And I think, depending on how Croker does this weekend is really going to depend on if the Raiders win or not because, I don't know, will they put him on Latrell or will they put Leilua on Latrell if Leilua's playing, do you think?
Well, I think it also comes back to the fact that there's a lot of injury concerns running around the Raiders, and I think majority of them being cleared, but I think Hodgson got cleared today, and
Sweet.
Wyden's got his shoulder issue, and Leilua's got his calf issue. I think saying this, and, on my mum's behalf almost, she definitely wants Leilua to be injured and not play this game.
Oh, wow. How come?
She thinks Leilua is awful. Like, he's just a very sporadic player who does a lot of silly things.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much every time he touches the ball. So it's just, getting that safety and security with him not being there. But I'm pretty sure it would end up being Leilua and Mitchell? I'm pretty sure.
I think you'd almost have to, wouldn't you? Because you'd almost just have to go big body on big body and just hope Leilua slows him down and then Croker can shut down whoever's on the other side. Orbison had a ripper of a game on Saturday night too for the Roosters. Early anyway.
Yeah, no, I think I definitely agree with you there because I think Croker is, one of the most passionate and has the most heart in the game. But I think he'd get torn apart by Latrell.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I don't know. I guess we see how they line up coming close to the game and, obviously you're going to make decisions then, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be on opposite sides of the field anyway.
Yeah. I hope they are. I really hope, because I think the Raiders' best chance is that Croker and that side of the team shut down whoever they're defending, and then you force Latrell to play good, because he's not very this year he hasn't been, in my opinion, that good under pressure.
No, he's definitely had a bit of a drop off this year, but he's still a good player.
He is.
I still think he runs rings around majority of the centers in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, it's definitely looking towards a really interesting game. But I think it also just comes down to the injury concerns too. Like, is Jake Friend going to be back?
Yeah.
Is how serious is Kiri's injury? That's what I want to bring up too. Kiri shouldn't be playing this game, straight up, after what he did. Ripping out Carl Foot. You know what? It's legal, but it's not well looked upon the way Carl Fulsey palmed him off. But to turn around, rip out his hair, and then put a shot on his chin and cop nothing for it, I was like, yeah, this is definitely going one way. But I don't know. And that was another thing that annoyed me, and I don't know if you saw it, but the locker rooms after that Roosters game, you have the guy who threw the punches saying, oh yeah, none of them connected, so I'll be here next week. I don't know if he is or not. No, I think he's in the lineup. So he was like, yeah, no, I'm confident I'll get off because I didn't land any of the punches. And it's like, you've landed 2. What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think he's still in the lineup. And yeah, I don't think Kiri should be there either for what he did. But I think whether he did get charged for it or not, the commentators were pretty much like, it's probably going to be a grade 1 charge, which he'll get off because he has a clean record anyway.
Yeah, it's rough, man. I didn't know that the Roosters guy did that in the sheds after. That's dog ass. And in my opinion, I know I'm a Roosters fan, but I think the Kiri thing, I think the hair grab was accidental, but I definitely think the shot on the chin was a bit of extras. I thought that was a bit unnecessary.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, I can definitely agree with that. But I think, let's just look on to next week and see where this grand final ends up. What are you thinking? Got any score predictions or anything exciting?
I don't know, eh? I mean, looking at the last few games, I'll just pull up the scores real quick.
They're relatively high.
Yeah.
For memory.
Yeah. 16-10 and 14-6, but then the week before it was 30s, and then I think I'm going to go, if the Roosters dominate, I reckon they win 24-10.
Okay, yep.
But I think if it's a close game and the Roosters win, I think it's 13-12. And if the Raiders win, I think it's same score. They beat the Rabbits. I think it's 16-10, and they have to play their hearts out, which I'm hoping they do.
Yep. See, I probably see this being a bit more high scoring, and I probably see Roosters winning it probably about 24-20, 24-18.
Wow, that'd be heartbreaking.
Yeah. Oh, either way, it's definitely heartbreaking to lose grand final, but
yeah, exactly.
It's definitely going to be a good game, and I think compared to the Roosters Storm, which is 2 clinical sides going for it, it's going to be one very sporadic and team with just the unknown coming for you. And I think that's what normally happens in a Roosters Raiders game. Like, Roosters can usually comfortably fend off, they get the lead and fend off absolutely any team. But it's like Raiders just hit them with something different that they just can't prepare for.
Yeah.
And it causes it to be a very high scoring game because Roosters need to keep answering back to stay ahead. So I hope that's the case and it's going to be a high scoring, interesting game, but can only wait and see.
Yeah, and I just realised I gave 3 score predictions, so no one bet whatever I say. I don't think anyone would, but yeah, don't ever ask me for betting advice because I'll just give you 3 different probabilities, but...
and then none will hit and you're going to look like an idiot.
Exactly. But speaking of big hits, I was going to make the segue, but I'm glad I didn't earlier, about the Papali run. Semu Karevi and the Wallabies.
Karevi.
What did you watch the game? What did you think of that?
I did.
What did you think of that run?
That run, I think it was extremely soft. I think, in my opinion, we need to go off initial contact.
Yep.
And initial contact was clean on the chest.
Yep.
While the guy started to fall back. It then raised to his throat,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where it fell.
Yeah.
Which, see, I see that as clean. But I love, and I don't know if you caught it. I'm sure you did because he made it plainly obvious. I just love Hooper going to the ref and going, "What? It's his poor tackling that's led him here."
Oh yeah, I love
Like,
that.
can you? We don't have time to wait for him to learn how to tackle.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way he's decided to tackle him. He's an idiot for it. I just love that. Like, just the blatant, this isn't our fault. He needs to go learn how to tackle.
No, I love that too, man. And I genuinely, I agree with Hooper. Like slowing it down and looking at it back. The guy plants while Semu's 5 meters away, and then as Semu comes, he jumps up to try and like bear hug him down to the ground. It is terrible tackle technique, and Semu just ran straight over him. Like if I wasn't looking out for it, I don't think I would have seen it in the replay. You know, because it just looks like a normal collision.
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything special because there's no contact with the face, which,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, I think is what you look out for. But I think it's also a thing of, and I think it's more so tackling than palming. But the big thing of everything's under the nipples now in union, like anything above that and it's instantly, you know, you're probably going to be carded for.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I know we've gone on for the past couple of weeks, particularly, we've sort of made this like a refs, like we agree that it's a tough job to do. But I really think, and this is going to sound crazy because I'm not a big fan of saying this, but I think that those refereeing decisions cost the Wallabies the game. Because looking back at it, no, I like dead set. I think that the Wallabies played the best game they've ever played in Checkers tactics. And I genuinely think if Foley didn't start or didn't make so many mistakes early, and that hit doesn't get called a hit, and then Wales don't kick that kick, and then like the intercept that didn't even get looked at when the guy looked offside in the live replay and then looked offside in the replay, and the TMO, you know, is happy to interject and tell Samu that, you know, penalise Samu for just running over some idiot Welsh guy, but then not happy to check a Welsh, you know, interception. It cost us the game because literally every time we got into Wales half and looked good, like we looked good on attack all the time. We dominated the lineouts. We dominated the scrum. You know, we actually looked good in attack. We were making meters. And every time we got near their half, we pretty much scored.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we concede 10 points and end up losing by 4 because we get pinged for Semu smashing into someone and an intercept try that didn't get called back. It hurt. I know I'm going off.
I agree completely. And I apologize for chuckling before. I'm chuckling because we've been a podcast so far of don't blame the refs. The refs are fine. Trust the process. Like, it's all good. They're doing their job. They'll make mistakes. And I've come in straight up like the Roosters Storm ref was god awful. I didn't even mention the, you know, and this is going back to should we be able to interject in the middle of a game? The blatant, like, you know, push forward of the ball, push forward, you know, like kind of the interception that didn't happen of Roosters, that the ball went like 20 meters back and out.
Yeah.
And the Roosters got the ball for that just because we can't go back and check, like, you know, things like that. And then we're both on the page of the ref. I don't know if the ref lost us the game. Like, I actually wouldn't go that far. I think he was a soft ref.
Yeah.
But I think it went both ways at times. Like, even you look at when Hooper got penalised for the late hit, like, he didn't even put a shot on or anything like that. Like, he just kind of braced himself because the guy was off balance and running towards him.
Yeah.
Like, there was just a lot of soft calls and majority seemed to go against Australia. But we looked fantastic.
We did.
We genuinely looked fantastic. We started a bit poor, and I think, you know, going back to what formula is going to work for us, I think starting with Nick White and then Genya in the second half, it just seemed like Genya was so slow at getting ball out when everyone was fresh.
Yeah.
But when everyone's that bit tired, you know, there's no potential incident where he's going to get intercepted or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the scenario we had. And I think, that's definitely the best formula to go Nick White and then second half Genya.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think, you know, you are right because... And I think the one thing I like about Wilgenia that I don't like about Nick White is that Wilgenia actually gets the forwards running forward. He actually had the forwards looking like, you know, and that's one of the things I wrote down multiple times in my notes was that the forwards, everyone besides Hooper and Pocock actually showed up for once. And that's why we just completely ran over. Like you look at the score at halftime, Wales were up 23-8 thanks to like 10 points that were basically given to them. If those
Yep.
points don't get given to them, it's 13-8 at halftime. Australia comes out, scores straight away, and we're up 15-13. And it's a completely different game. I think Dan Biggar getting concussed. Did you see that tackle on Samu that he did? I think it was a bit before him getting knocked out in that tackle. I think Wales might have to, if they make it to the quarters, they're going to have some concerns because they look like a completely different team when he was off.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was just because they started coasting because they were up massive, but they did not look as good as they did when Dan Biggar was on. And, I mean, it shows they only scored 6 points and 2 of those were penalty kicks for the only 2 dumb mistakes the Wallabies made in the second half. But I'm getting sidetracked. You're right. I think we start with Nick White. I think we have to start with Tamua then though. I think we can't.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I was thinking. It leaves us in a situation of. I think this question was going to come up anyway. But what do we do at 10 then? Like, I think that's what's going to work for us at 9. But what do we do at 10?
Well, I think it has to be Tamua. I think Lily gets cut off too much by Nick White's. Like, he's mucking around it, and not to discredit him, but you know what I mean. Like, he takes jabs, and that doesn't suit Lily because Lily needs the ball in his hand, not balls, ball
Early,
in his hands early,
and then have time.
So because he plays as a direct, and then and we can't play Nick White with Foley because that'll just be terrible. It's 2 weavy guys who run across the field to make space. So I think it has to be Tamua just because if Nick White gets it to Tamua late, he can at least run and break the line.
Yeah, that's a fair call.
And then
I think that's the one thing we're still yet to see is, and I haven't actually seen it at all because I don't know if it's happened, but like Tamua playing 10 for us.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be really interesting. Obviously, there's not going to be as strong competition as Wales until the quarters.
Yeah,
but I think we just slot Tamua in there in the next game, and we should comfortably win the game with or without him.
Yeah,
but just see how the team flows with him there.
Yeah, and that's the annoying thing because we announced the team for Uruguay today, and he's playing 12.
Okay.
So we've got Nick White, Lily, and then Matt Tamura at 12, which I don't like at all. I really would have liked to have seen Lily come off the bench with Will Genia and, play James O'Connor at 12 maybe to see how he goes inside instead of Samu. But, yeah, it's just, you're right. I think we needed to see Tamura at 10 for a whole game, and I think a touch-up game against Uruguay probably would have been his best foot forward, but, I don't know. We're not the coach. But
yeah, that's exactly right. But I think it was definitely going to lead us into just seeing all avenues that we have.
Yeah, and we needed to.
Yeah, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how we go. But I just wanted to make mention too. I've been super impressed with how well James O'Connor's playing. Like,
oh yeah,
I think he's been phenomenal. Like, he's really good at breaking that last tackle and then feeding the ball to the winger and getting us in great positions.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's phenomenal work by him, and it'd be interesting to see him at 12, but I think so far he's performing really well in the 13 too.
Yeah, he is. And I think his whole personality thing now, I think that also is a big factor too in why I've sort of liked his comeback. But you're right, he has been playing insane. He's been doing what a perfect 13 does. You don't hear about him at all because they're just defending well. They might pop up for a try, but they're the link guy. They just do their job, and you don't want to hear their name at all, really.
Yep, exactly.
And he's done exactly that. And, I mean, just to go on with that point, I think one of the things about him playing so well and beating that first tackle, one of the things I noticed that the Wallabies were doing was we'd shift Samu to the wing and put Corabetti in at 12. Like, sometimes in general play, we'd let Corabetti come in and rove like he used to as in league, and then give Samu space on the wing because he can make something in a lot less space than Cora. Because Corabetti's pretty useless on the wing because I don't think he knows how to use his pace and his speed yet on the wing. He often, tries to beat the guy on the outside and gets pushed out.
Yeah.
And I think him coming in and using him as either like a crash ball or whatever, and then having, James O'Connor there to offload it to Samu is, where, and I hope we keep doing that. But you're right. I think James O'Connor's impressed me too a lot.
Yeah. I honestly think all of our outside backs have been a lot better than I expected. It's just making sure we nail it on the inside there.
Yeah, exactly.
And it all comes together. But I think like you were saying, the forwards have been really good. The only thing disappointing with it so far is how isolated we are leaving men at
Oh
times.
yeah.
Like, we're not taking that extra second because, like, we're getting safe, secure ball pretty much every rock.
Yeah.
But we're not taking that extra second to make sure we're actually set and ready for
Exactly.
the next rock. And it's leaving us in a situation where we're leading in with one man. And if we didn't have as good, like, clear outs as, Pocock and Hooper, I'm surprised. I think we only had one turnover from the ruck,
Yeah.
from holding onto the ball. I was surprised. I expected that to happen 3 or 4 times with how bad we were.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I mean, Wales turned it over a shit ton too with just a counter ruck,
Yeah.
So yeah, it was disappointing to see that that's still in our game. That's something that's been there for years now, since 2017. Just leaving our forwards way too isolated because the rest of the forwards are setting up for the next pod or waiting for the offload. And I mean, yeah, once we get to quarters, that's going to start costing us if that keeps being a thing. I don't know. Is there anything else you wanted to say? Any other things you picked up?
Not overly. Like, the general thing is that I was really impressed with us, and we should have won that game, but there's not a lot we can change now. We can only look forward. Unfortunately, I think we're going to be on the worst side of the finals now, but we'll see how far we can get.
Yeah, exactly. It sucks because, and when there's a Wallabies game like this and there's refs' decisions that influence it too, you can always go back and say, well, they messed up here and here and here. And I tried to go back and look at it like that, and the only thing I can think of was Foley's, constant knock-ons in the first half. And I'm happy Checker pulled him off as quickly as he did in the second. But it wasn't like any of his mistakes directly led to Wales scoring. It was like, he knocked on and made a mistake, and it did give Wales a chance to put pressure on us, but it wasn't the reason they scored. And it wasn't even like indirectly, like, he turned it over and then they scored 12 phases later. It was like he'd just make mistakes and turn the ball over. And that's what sucks, is that I really feel like it was the refs that let us down in this. And, TMO and the judiciary, like, I'm starting to get sick of it. I think there's been more talk this World Cup, just to go more general now, there's been more talk this World Cup about suspensions and tackles to the head and red cards than there has been about some of the actual games that have been played.
Yeah, no, I agree. Every game, the takeaway isn't who won or whatever. And I think that's probably down to usually the person we expect to win is winning. But the conclusion to every game and what everyone's focusing on is how long people are getting suspended and whether or not there should have been a red card.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
That's the focus post-game, not how well the team played or anything.
Yeah, and I mean, World Rugby did the right thing giving Hodge what he got because they followed the rule book and they gave him everything. But now all it's turned into every game after this is everyone overanalyzes every hit that's above the shoulders and says, hey, this guy made a tackle like this. Why hasn't he got 3 weeks? We've seen it with the 2 Samoan guys. And Samoa's World Cup is basically over now. They've got 2 guys that are out for the rest of the group stage. Even if they were going to compete, they had 2 other guys injured in that game. So they're down to they've lost 4 of their, they lost their hooker, they lost a flanker, they lost their number 8, and they lost a back. And then you look in the England game, one of the USA versus England games, the USA guy gets, a red and then gets banned for 3 weeks for the shoulder charge to Barrett. No, sorry, not Barrett, Farrell. But then, an English player made a shoulder charge too and he's got off scot-free. And this is just what it's turned into is, teams that are jaded about their players getting suspended are now looking at all the other games saying, hey, you missed this. And that's not what it should be about, I think we need to start, I think rugby needs to, like Samu Karevi actually said, World Rugby needs to start consulting the players on the rule changes and, figure out a framework where the players understand that World Rugby wants their safety at the forefront, but something that the players are happy with, and then start ruling it like the NRL judiciary does. I've sort of have been a fan of rugby going sort of like a case law thing, like where, well, this is what we handed out 6 months ago. It's only fair if you get the same. I think they need to start going case by case and looking at it like the NRL does.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, I think you'd have more knowledge. And I know that the NRL does use other cases as stuff, but like you said, like NRL takes into perspective players, and they seem to take into perspective a lot more of the context of it too. Like whatever the Joey Leilua hit that he put on, if he did that in Union, he'd be banned for 3 weeks. But they look at it and they say, well, the Rabbitohs guy was dipping into it a little bit, and I don't think Joey Leilua did it with any malice. He still caught him on the chin, but it wasn't anything harsh, and he gets off. It was Leilua, no, not Leilua. Sorry, Papali. You know the shot I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The big hit. There was, in my eyes, there was nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a good shot and he's come up. But,
yeah.
I think there's lucky nothing's come of it, which there wasn't an issue with it. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to keep ranting, but I just think, Union needs to get to a spot, because I don't think their game's gone soft. I think, as athletes, like, we need to reduce the risk of these guys. Like, these are guys who, 100 kilos, 120 kilos, shouldn't be moving as quick as they are, and they're smashing into each other. It's a dangerous profession, and we do need to look after the players. But at the same time, like, what is the point in everyone getting a 3-week ban because you accidentally hit someone in the head, or it's just a big collision that rides up and you cop them in the chin and now your World Cup's over?
Yep.
And, this might be the only World Cup you're playing. It just sucks. And I'm sick of the discussion about it being, trying to paint all the other games as... And another thing with World Rugby too, they need to figure out how they're going to roast their refs for wrong errors. Like, I'm sick of them coming out every 2 weeks and saying, this is everything these guys did wrong. We don't agree with it. They need to improve. They should do what the NBA does in finals and playoffs, and I think it's only the last 2 minutes. But the NBA, after a game, about 2 hours after a game finishes, from the official NBA refereeing head office, they release a file of every single foul that got called or missed, and they just lay it out and put it out there to the public.
Yeah.
And they just, they just say, this is what our refs did wrong. They make it available to the refs, to the league, and to the public. And, it's a lot easier to get closure instead of, you get to the situation where it's Tuesday. All everyone's been talking about since the Saturday game was how this guy did this. And last week, this Reece Hodge got banned for this. And it's just the blood on the game. And it's ruined because, I'm going off, but it's just annoying that there's been so many great games. So many, I hate to say it, Tier 2 teams have been pushing Tier 1 teams for 60 minutes. Like, this is the most competitive World Cup so far. The scorelines aren't showing it, but a lot of these Tier 2 teams are rising, and all we're talking about is fucking referees. I'm sick of it, man.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to go off.
I think it's probably a good segue into the next thing, but I actually quite like the way the NFL does it. And it's kind of like, if you do it once, it's unlucky. You do it twice, it's coincidence. And if you do it 3 times, then you just, then it's a pattern and you're a serial offender.
Yeah.
And I think we can see that in the situation with Vontaze Burfict. So the Raiders middle linebacker, I don't know if you saw it at all, but the helmet-on-helmet contact, he, got ejected from the game, and now he's been suspended for the rest of the season because I think this is the 3rd or 4th time he's committed this. He just has poor tackling technique. He leads with the helmet, which is completely illegal in NFL.
Yep.
And now he's getting full on suspended for it the rest of the season. And I don't think I've seen anyone go, this is an unfair punishment that he's gone for the rest of the season.
Yeah. It's not.
It's just you're doing it on purpose essentially, and you've done it multiple times, so we're going to give you a big suspension. Where, comparing it to rugby union, it's like everything generally so far has been a minor accident where they touch their chin or hit the chest and it's going up to the throat and things like that. There's no malice in anything, and I think it's hard to rule everything equally. But quite frankly, it's impossible. But you'd like to see some improvement. But I think, we continue to segue into the NFL. What did you enjoy watching this week?
Well, I mean, just to backpack off you there, I think the Vontaze Burfict thing was fair. I think, I think he's one of the dirtiest players that, I mean, since I've been following it, that's all everyone has spoken about, is he's one of the dirtiest players in the league. Yeah. And I think he is one of the reasons why they've stopped the helmet-to-helmet or leading with the helmet stuff, is because he just used to dive at guys' knees with their ankle and, ruin guys' careers because he'd, land his helmet straight into their knee and bend it backwards and break everything. And I'm just looking here in my notes just to, add to you, just so everyone knows how dirty this guy is. He's got 13 fines or suspension in 7 seasons. Normally, if you're someone, you might get, what is it, like, how many fines have you seen someone get? I think most I've seen someone get is like 2 fines in the 4 years I've been following NFL.
The same person?
No, I can't remember, but you know what I mean? Like,
Or just how many fines?
yeah, well,
all up?
well, not all up, but sort of like for the same person, I think. And even then, it was like, I think I've seen Antonio Brown get fined 2 times for twerking or inappropriate celebrations. Like getting.
But let's even look at that. That's not dirty playing. That's just, being rude essentially, and all the off-field antics a lot of people get fined for. But like Landon Collins got fined earlier this season. Was it Landon Collins?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, against the Jets. Was it Landon Collins? I think it was, yeah. He got fined anyway against the Jets for... Oh, no, sorry. It was against the Browns because it was on Baker Mayfield.
Oh, yeah.
No, I've got my facts all wrong. It was the Jets versus Brown games. It was Jamal Adams.
Oh, that's it. Yep. For his hit on Baker.
Jamal Adams got the fine because it was slightly late, which, I look at a situation like that, there was no malice in it, and I think it was the wrong call. Like, he's already committed to the tackle when Baker releases it. But the general, fining for playing dirty, I don't think I've seen anyone really get fined more than once.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
It's kind of true to the fact in a way that it's a gentleman's game and everyone's there to kind of get the best out of each other and to get paid and enjoy the game.
Yeah.
Not to end people's career, and that's how you're going to try and win.
Yeah, exactly. And, like you said, you've seen like one or like barely any suspensions. Like this guy's got 13 in 7 seasons. And how hard the NFL rules it. Like you just exemplified there with the Baker shot that Jamal Adams did. Like it is hard to get fined or suspended 13 times by the NFL. Like you have to be completely messing up because it is a gentleman's game. Like as brutal and as hard as the contact is and how hard they play, no one wants to break anyone. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, exactly.
And his shot was disgusting. Like, Jack Doyle's got his head bent down because he's trying to go down to the ground. Burfict comes screaming in, smashes straight into his neck. Could have compressed his neck and damaged his spine. And, I think the suspension was right.
For context that anyone doesn't know, like Jack Doyle had taken the catch, was falling to his knees. Like he was on his knees pretty much when Burfict came in and, just completely nailed him helmet to helmet. I'm not sure if he did, but 9 times out of 10 in this circumstance, the opposition player ends up getting concussed and is out for the game or potentially for multiple weeks after.
Yeah. Which I don't think Burfict got actually. So both of them were lucky not to get injured on that play, to be honest. That's how dangerous it was.
Yeah, I'm also mean for Jack Doyle. I think he got away with it, and, that's the position you get for it. But, comparing it to someone else, like Jordan Reed at the moment, the Redskins tight end, he hasn't played a game this season because he got a concussion in, I think it was the final game of preseason.
Yeah.
And, this just shows the seriousness of it. He is still questionable to come back next week after missing 4 weeks already. Just because he's a repeat person who's continuously copped late hits and hits to the head and been concussed multiple times that, ex-players, more so than current players, are dead set recommending he doesn't step back on the field just because it's such a danger.
Yeah.
The amount of times he's getting concussed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's, I think it just goes to show how much the NFL cares about their personnel and, as dangerous as the game is, they understand that. So they're implementing everything they can in place to make it safe.
Exactly.
Like even, nowadays with the quarterback, like if you tackle the quarterback, you can't directly land on him because so many were getting injured by that. So now you kind of have to roll with the tackle. And, it's meant to be a safe game. So when someone's doing something dirty like this, it's just blatantly obvious. And, like you say, 13 fines in 7 seasons. He deserves to get suspended for the rest of the season.
Yeah, he does. And it is a big loss to the Raiders because, their defense is chugging along as probably, one of maybe a top 12, top 10 defense, I think. I know it probably doesn't show since they have Derek Carr that they have to play with, and then, their offensive drive, so they don't get rested much. The defense doesn't, but I think it does hurt them. But I mean, at the same time, I don't think you miss someone that dirty playing on your team anyway.
Yeah, I think I just sit back and it's like, how do you call him the captain of your team?
Yeah. Is he a captain?
Yeah, he's their captain.
Yeah.
I don't know how you make him captain for one.
I don't know.
But if they enjoy him as being captain, that's a big loss too. But I think do you have anything else on that point, or do you reckon we kick into the games?
Oh no, I was gonna move off it a bit. I think we've said enough about Big Perfect. Sorry for everyone for me dragging it on. But yeah, what caught your eye, man, this week?
Well, I think we probably start at the start of the week, Thursday night football.
Mm-hmm.
This was a great game between the Eagles and the Packers.
Yep.
I sat back and, I think I texted you at the start of the game, and Packers were dominating. Like, Eagles had absolutely nothing. Aaron Rodgers was on form. And I think after Devontae Adams this week came out and was like, I want more targets, I want more receptions. Like, I'm unhappy with, the amount of football I'm essentially getting to play. He came back and was just targeted on every play. Like, he pretty much didn't play the final quarter because I think he has an ankle sprain.
Turf toe, I think it is.
No, it's not an ankle sprain. Yeah, it is. So he's set to potentially miss a couple weeks, but we'll see how that goes. But in 3 quarters, like 10 targets, he was just the face of everything.
He was.
And they just dominated because of it. And the first half, what was the score at halftime? Actually, no, sorry. It was after the first, I think Packers had put in a couple of touchdowns. Then Carson Wentz just played out of his mind and was just throwing absolute lasers and was the only reason Eagles got back into the game. And then Green Bay just didn't have it late. Like, I was quite shocked to see Aaron Rodgers couldn't pull back that win to tie up the game and send it to overtime.
Yeah, I was too. I think the one thing I really noticed in the game was, the Packers ran out to, a 10-0 lead. They were hitting Devontae really well, like you said. And then for some reason, somehow, the Philly defense, as bad as it is, it's one of those defenses that lets the offense walk all the way down the end of the field. And then once it gets to the red zone, they put them on clamps. And that's just what they did multiple drives. Like, after the Packers went up 10-0, Philly gets a stop. They score on the next drive. Philly forces the Packers to take a field goal. They score on the next drive, and then Philly force Rodgers to fumble, and then they score, and suddenly, the Eagles are up 21-13. I think we have to give credit to the Eagles defense for putting the clamps on in the red zone, but that's one of the things that was disappointing about the Packers was that, and I think, this is one of the things why, just thinking about how you were talking about Devontae before, you sit here and you think and you wonder as a fan, you go like, why doesn't every team target their number one receiver all day when you can just do what Devontae and Rodgers did? And I think it just is because the other players have to warm up around him. Like when Devontae went down or they started double teaming him and Rodgers couldn't target him as much, you start running the ball more to Jones, and he hasn't had, the 6, 7, 8 carries that he normally would have by this point. He's only had 3 or 4, and he's, barely going anywhere on his rushes. And then the other receivers haven't been targeted. They're dropping balls. I think this is why, teams don't go to their number one guy all the time like the Packers did, because it works for a while. And then when you need it, other players to work, they're just not warm. So I think that hurt the Packers. I just think the Philly defense really showed up somehow. They have no one, and, they played really well. I don't know what you think about that, but...
Yeah, no, for sure. That it's a very banged up defense now, which is really hurting them. But they've just, like you said, they just thrived in the red zone, it seemed. And, the amount of opportunities Aaron Rodgers had to tie up the game, it was surprising that he didn't get it. And I think it largely comes down to the fact that Devontae Adams wasn't on the field. And I think if he was, they do tie that game up. But it just seemed to go nowhere with him off the field. Like, considering they have been dominant, going 3-0 up until this point without really using him.
It's surprising.
So this week, there was nothing without him, which, was completely surprising.
Yeah.
But I think, credit to Jordan Howard managed to break out in this game out of nowhere and just, 2 rushing touchdowns and was the heartbeat of this offense when it came later in the game. And then, the shutdown in the red zone, credit to him. I think there was a few bad calls by Rodgers of like who he was throwing it to and etc. But they did well.
Yeah, they did. Well, what did you think of the Philly offense? Because I didn't really take many notes on it because they just scored. That was one thing too. The Packers' defense is meant to be so formidable, but Philly sliced them to bits essentially. Like what do you think of the Philly offense?
It was completely surprising. The Philly offense that didn't have Deshaun Jackson and were lacking a little bit. Miles Sanders still hasn't hit his form yet, hasn't hit his stride. They just cut Green Bay to pieces in offense, in defense, which no one's been able to do so far this season. And it's a small sample size. It's only been 3 games. But I didn't expect this from Philly. I expected it to be tight, but I didn't expect them to have a chance of winning. And I don't know what the highlight was, but I think just Jordan Howard with his breakaway runs out of nowhere and went for just walk-in touchdowns was just an utter surprise. Like, it didn't seem like they were doing anything fantastically in offense. It just seemed the right play call at the right time, and they just kept scoring.
Yeah, I think you have to put a large amount of it on Jordan Howard. You're right. I think, I'm looking at the stats now. Carson Wentz only had 160 passing yards,
Yeah,
and only passed 27
3
times.
touchdowns.
Yeah, and 3 touchdowns. And I think it was just Jordan Howard. And yeah, I don't know what. I was really disappointed in the Packers defense, I didn't.
For someone who's been holding it together so well over the past few weeks, and to just fall apart like that was surprising. But I guess you look like they versed Denver, which keeping Joe Flacco to a low score and performing badly isn't hard. Like I said, I think he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Then the week before that, I guess you have Kirk Cousins, who's been one of the most disappointing quarterbacks. And the week before that, you got Mitch Trubisky, who once again is now injured potentially, but I think is a horrendous quarterback. So I guess the defense has looked fantastic, but this is the first time they've actually versed a top half of the table quarterback too.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe that's the difference, even though, Carson Wentz only threw for 170 yards. Like, he got 3 touchdowns and he was part of it all. So
yeah,
I don't know.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. I think it is that. And I think, I've been guilty of it a bit this year too. And I think just a reminder to, listeners who are trying to get into the NFL is don't trust everything you hear about defenses after 3 weeks. Or everything that the like ESPN, I hate everything that the media is trying to jam down your throat, but everything ESPN's trying to tell you about who's the best defense, because after 3 weeks, an easy enough schedule that the Packers have got, because this is the thing you'll hear about, going into the season, how good the Bears offense is going to be this year and how good the Vikings are going to be, and then when it gets to the season and those teams underperform, it gets put on the opposition's defense as if to praise them. But really, now that the season's starting to go along, we're starting to see that, Flacco's not that good. Trubisky's turning into a shit quarterback. The Vikings are underperforming, but we're still going to credit the Green Bay defense for doing that when maybe we shouldn't be.
Yep.
So I think
exactly.
Just keep an eye out, because I think another team like that too is the Ravens. I think even against the Cardinals, I noticed it. The amount of chunk plays they give up, blowing coverages, just... it was disappointing against the Browns, to say the least. Just letting Jarvis Landry had a field day on the Ravens, and Odell did nothing.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. I think, like you said, the thing is with the NFL, and it just doesn't seem to make any sense compared to the majority of other sports. It's such a week-to-week game.
It is.
Like, the team you can face one week versus the next can be completely different. And it comes down a lot to the way teams set up, what they're better at covering. And, this is going a little bit in depth, but, what type of personnel, whether it's, 11 personnel or 21 or whatever. Like, it completely changes it. And, going back to that topic on the Ravens, I don't know if you've heard about it as well, but Ravens, when an opposition's using 3 wide receivers, are horrendous.
Yeah.
Like, anything else they can cover super well and are brilliant against, except when they have more than 3 or more wide receivers. And comparing it to the Browns, who have been really bad so far, but dominated this game.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the Browns run are 3 or more wide receivers.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just showed how, you have the Browns performing so badly and the Ravens performing so well. But if they just, one team's really good at one thing and the opposition's really bad at that, it doesn't matter how good each team is, they just counter each other.
Yeah.
Like, as silly as it sounds, it's kind of like one's water and one's fire, and it doesn't matter how strong the fire is, like, the water still just counters it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
And it's a little bit like that in a very general, simple terms.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right, man. And I think the scoreline, Baltimore just struggled to get started. I don't know how or why. I think, as the game went on, I think Cleveland being up by so much helped their defense. But I just think the Ravens having their first real challenge and the run game doing enough, but not doing what it had the past couple of weeks. I think Lamar played a very 50-50 game. I think he played a lot better when he needed to pass, but I think his interceptions were poor, and that obviously cost them the game because, he throws 2 picks and the corresponding drives, Cleveland go and put 14 points on the board, or it might have been, it was either 14 or I think they got a 2-point conversion, 14 or 15 points on them. And, you take that away. If Lamar doesn't throw those picks you take those away, it's, 25 all. So I think, Lamar, he disappointed. I think the Ravens offense disappointed, but I don't think it's all hope lost yet. I just think they'll have to,
no, definitely not.
Play a team that doesn't run over their defense as much, which has been disappointing for me. I mean, I sort of anticipated this, but them having a fairly easy first 3 games, I sort of thought the defense was actually half decent again, but I don't think it is. I think it's going to start, putting them, like it might the Packers too, where they might fall and, undershine the expectations that they had these first 3 weeks being undefeated. I don't know how you feel about it. I don't know if I just made any sense at all, but.
No, you completely made sense there. I think it didn't even fall necessarily on Lamar's shoulders. I think it was a very tight game, and I thought Lamar was playing really well. Like, he wasn't doing anything outstanding. He was just playing such a solid game. He ran and made huge meters when he needed to. He was throwing accurately. But as soon as Mark Ingram made that fumble, and I think Browns had just scored, he fumbled and they went and scored again, and it put them like 14 points in front.
Yeah.
It just went to Ravens playing catch up, and they just couldn't catch up, which I was surprised to see against the Browns. But the Browns just performed extremely well, put Lamar under pressure, and I thought Lamar would dodge a lot of it, but just couldn't seem to quite break away from it. So I think a lot of credit to Browns, but it just fell on a platter for them too.
Yeah. Exactly, it did. It really did. And I think, not to steal someone else's take, but I seen on Twitter, Chris Sims, guy I used to watch, sort of sometimes still do, Nick Chubb runs 20 times for 165 yards. I think, like he said, I think that's the best way for the Browns to play is get the run game going and take as much pressure off Baker having to make the play. Like, just this will be one of the things that we hope Baker turns into as a quarterback is that, Baker Mayfield continues to develop and can be the guy that you can trust all the time. But right now he's in his second year. He only started 12 games, I think it was last year. And he doesn't have a full season under his belt as a starting quarterback yet. And, just let him learn how to make plays and pick out guys. And another thing I just want to mention about Cleveland too, and I think we obviously spoke about it too about the Rams, is I think they need to figure out how to use all of their wide receivers in one game, because the first 3 games it's been very heavy that they rely on Odell and, sort of neglect Jarvis, and this week
Yep.
they seem to be targeting Jarvis a lot. And obviously it's got to do with
Yeah, they
Baker
just went the other way.
finding the reads and making the right passes and stuff. But they need to figure out a way to get both of them involved in turning over and having 100-yard games, because that'll open up so much more of the game for Baker and for the whole offense. So I think, as good as the scoreline looks, I think Cleveland still has some ways to go, but I think it was a positive win for Cleveland. I don't know if you had any other thoughts.
I think, like you were saying, just going back to the Nick Chubb situation, I think it needs to be very heavily relied on Nick Chubb performing well, because he's a fantastic running back. But, leading with that and then just hitting Baker early with some play action passes. And in all honesty, you hit him with a couple play action passes early. Either Jarvis or Odell are probably running for touchdowns, and you can get a nice lead. And then you can just sit back. Chubb can do the work. Baker can make nice passes when he needs to. And it just takes that early pressure off.
Yeah.
Which I think we saw in this game when they made the good defensive stop in the fumble and went for 2 quick touchdowns. They were just able to sit back, let the game hit them, and just bounce back with the pressure when they needed to. I think that was, definitely the best game we've seen from them, probably.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is. And one of the big things that's come out of the first 3 weeks that I've seen is, Baker's completion percentage is drastically lower when he takes longer than, and it's minuscule, but longer than, when he releases the ball out of his hands in under 2.3 seconds, he's like a 65% completion rate. But when he takes longer than 2.8 seconds or longer than 2.3, it drops down to the 40s, low 30s. So I think, like you said, establish the run, let the game hit them, and just let Baker, I think they need to start using Beckham on more routes where he can run after the catch, like maybe use him more instead of dialing up plays for him and Landry to go deep down the field. I don't think that's going to, because, you don't want Baker holding onto the ball for a long time. So give him an option to, like, the best guy, probably. I think Odell is probably one of the best running after catch receivers in the league. Like, let him shine and have Jarvis go deep, because Baker's shown that I think he picks out Jarvis better on the deep routes anyway than Odell. And I think that's a chemistry thing. But yeah, like you said, they just need to establish the run and, get up early and let the game hit them. Don't put Baker in a pressure situation yet, because he's still only a second-year quarterback. And the same with Lamar too. You can't expect Lamar, when your defense is going out there for 3 seconds and Browns are running all over them. You can't expect Lamar to come in as a second-year guy who's, started, 8 games or 10 games or something. And
yeah, exactly. Probably 10 games now.
But anyway, I think, I think we've pretty much covered Ravens. Was there any other games you watched that you wanted to mention?
I was going to mention the Steelers, but did you want to mention the Cowboys first?
Yeah, there's not too much, really. I think, the close game score, as much as it looked like a boring game, it actually was really entertaining to watch. I remember you messaged me and said that you started watching it and then weren't going to finish watching it, and I don't blame you. There was a lot of, quick 3 and outs or teams that get 1 first down and then punt, and it was a bit boring, but I just think...
Yep, I was only watching... I started watching in the third quarter, so I saw the touchdown and the comeback from Cowboys.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty much enough. Like, I was watching it with Dad, and he walked away for 5 seconds. They scored the touchdown, and he was like, "Oh crap, they scored!" And I was just like, "Yep." And that's the end of the game.
Yeah.
Like, there's a field goal to come, and that's the end of it. Like it, I think for sure. Like we were texting and saying, a game like this is so much fun to watch because it's so back and forth, and every drive means so much.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
Going back and watching a game when you know the score and you know what's going to happen, which was the scenario for me, it's not fun because when that one touchdown in the entire game's coming, and as soon as it comes, there's nothing left after that. Like, there's nothing else to be holding out for.
Yeah.
So I think that was a scenario for me, but I can definitely see why you thoroughly enjoyed that game.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. It's not a good game. You didn't want to watch it on replay. I think, the same thing, And this the one thing that disappointed me, and I didn't think about it in the moment, but looking back and then obviously going on Twitter and seeing some of the stats that people were dropping was, this was a very retro Cowboys appearance, like a very last year, where we try and pound the rock the first two, or try and run the ball the first two plays of a drive, get absolutely nowhere. Like Zeke just had an off day. I think he never plays well against the Saints, and
I think that comes down to the Saints have such a good defensive line.
yeah.
Like Cameron Jordan and like a few people, they are fantastic there. Like they are one of the best in the leagues, and that's why Zeke didn't and must usually not go well. It's just because they are so good at stopping the run, which is a situation where you need to, start to fall back on Dak, which I'm assuming wasn't the case. They kept trying to pound with Zeke.
Yeah, and I mean, well, they did sort of. I think Dak has elevated a bit this year, and he was making those plays. But I mean, there's not much you can do when you run you run the ball 2 times for a yard, and then it's 3rd and 9, and they double team Amari, so you've got to get the pass. No Michael Gallup there hurt us. He'll be out for a couple more weeks, and that really hurt us. But you've got to somehow get 9 yards to a dude named Devin Smith, and not to disrespect those guys, but you know what I mean. It's just
exactly.
It's tough for and Dak wasn't exactly a shining light, but he wasn't. It was just a bad performance from the Cowboys.
No, he certainly wasn't bad. It was just you're facing a tough opposition who is really trying to work because Drew Brees is out. The team has to work 10 times harder, and they're doing a lot better than anyone thought. Like, I think Terry Bridgewater's come out and he's not playing well, but he's doing his job, and the rest of the team's elevated around him because I think just the disrespect they've had thinking that they're, and even from me, like I was thinking they might not make the playoffs because of the Drew Brees injury, like they might not have enough time to come back. But in the next games and stuff, they have a really good shot at coming out of the other side of this Drew Brees injury still a positive team, like, a team with more wins than losses, which I think for most people is a surprise.
Yeah, it is for me too. I really think I really thought the Cowboys were going to blow out the Saints. Like, no disrespect, I just thought, the way that our offense had been going, I thought we'd just absolutely score. And Teddy Bridgewater did do a good job. And this is one of the things that the Saints might run into some trouble with is, like, Bridgewater's just not a quarterback that can make the throws that Breeze can. And Breeze gets a bit of flack from media personnel around the league because he can't. He doesn't often sit back and throw that Pat Mahomes 50-yard bomb, but at least he has it in his arsenal that he can attempt it. Like Bridgewater, I don't think I've seen Bridgewater try and throw a pass over 20 yards, and the one that he did got intercepted, and then everything else was borderline, barely got to 10 yards. It's a lot of checkdowns, and it was a lot of work. But I think the one good thing about the Saints winning this game is that they grinded it out. Their defense did well. Everyone on offense did well enough that maybe they do rally around Bridgewater more than they might have, you know what I mean? And maybe they do make that push for playoffs, but it is going to be tough. I think they got the Bucks this week, which will be interesting to see. Then the Jags the week after. I mean, they do have a fairly good run of game.
And then I think they have
Bears,
Chicago after that.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. But
they have a bunch of games where they might be difficult games, but it's not like they're facing an extremely good quarterback that's just going to pick them to bits either.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very level playing field. And then I think we probably just finish off on the Steelers game. Did you catch this game by any chance?
No, I didn't. I was going to watch the highlights, but I just ran out of time. I apologize.
It was a really interesting play style. Like, it's actually something I've never seen out of any NFL team before, and it was a lot to do with just taking the pressure off Mason Rudolph. Like, they didn't expect him to make any huge throws, and they would just like expect him to play it saves. Like, he dumped it off to the running backs 8 apiece to Jalen Samuels and James Conner, and they both had exceptional games. And it was a lot of like, there was numerous times where they were playing like a wildcat formation with Rudolph not on the field, and it was like Samuels was essentially going to quarterback and just having a little tip-off pass to James Conner or taking it himself.
Wow.
For like big gains. So like, I definitely recommend going and watching it just to see how weird and whack this offense was to usual, but worked so well. The unfortunate side to it, like for me personally, was Juju didn't receive the ball. And, we talk about Devontae Adams. Why can't more teams just throw it straight to their number one receiver? I wish I saw this, and I especially wish I saw this because I took my first L this week in fantasy because Juju didn't perform, which breaks my heart. But, what happens. But it was just a really good game overall. Like Mason Rudolph with 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. I think they're playing a game more to surround him, and he got his one deep throw to Deontay Johnson, which was fantastic. Like I was explaining to you, it was just a post cross route with Juju Smith and Deontay Johnson, and when they crossed, both defenders just decided to cross to Juju, take him, make sure he wasn't getting the ball, and just let Deontay Johnson, like, wide open, walk-in touchdown. But, like, defense, on the other hand, just dominated Andy Dalton and the Bengals, and, primetime Dalton's never any good.
Yeah.
And the Bengals aren't a great team overall, but it was a really impressive performance. But I think we got Baltimore this week off the back of their loss to the Browns. It's going to be a really big game, and, I'd already kind of wiped away our season in a way, and I don't want to fill myself up with hope because I don't think it's coming. But the truth is, we're kind of only one win behind the Browns or the Ravens.
Yeah.
Like, it's actually kind of in reach to still be considering playoffs.
Yeah.
But the next couple games are really it's going to come down to those next couple games for sure.
No, you're right. I think, I think the disappointing thing to come out of this conference is that maybe there's not 2 teams. There's not the winner and then a wild card team in this division,
which we all expected.
Yeah, but I think, if it stays close, it's going to be really interesting to see because it will be like one game or one win. And Ravens coming off the loss that they had and the first 3 weeks that were easy, and Steelers with the new quarterback. I think I'm going to earmark that game as one of the ones we'll both watch this week because I really want to see what happens in that one.
Yeah, for sure. But in saying that they might not get multiple playoff runs as well, like, there's no team, like, fighting for the playoffs outside of them. Like, you got New England and Chiefs in the conference that are 4-0.
Yep.
Buffalo Bills are the only other team that are 3-1. And after that, everyone's 2-2. Like, currently, as it stands at the moment, if we were going to playoffs tomorrow, the Oakland Raiders would be making it.
Wow.
Because there's the Chargers, Raiders, Titans, Jags, Colts, Texans, Ravens, Browns. All of them are 2-2.
Damn.
Right now. So it's actually a lot closer than anyone expected. But, like, just a quick shout out. I don't want to go into any games besides telling people they should continue to get on the Gardner Minshew train. But the entire AFC South are all 2-2.
Yeah.
So it's actually going to be really interesting to see who can break away from the pack.
Yeah, it will be. It will be. I think one of the things, to steal someone else's take about the Texans that they've done, is they've put absolutely nothing into their defense. Like, they let Javinian Clowney get traded away, and they've added nothing. And I don't know how long Deshaun Watson can carry that offense with DeAndre Hopkins for, carry that team on offense. But, I think it's starting to unwind because, like it was, you look at Carolina, I obviously haven't watched the game or the highlights, but it seems like they made one mistake and Carolina wins the game.
Yeah. Carolina have been fantastic in defense, like just as a low-key defense. They've been dominating, like interceptions, sacks. They've just been fantastic. But, yeah, I think Texans, the truth is they traded for Laramie Tunsil, which was a fantastic decision, but the rest of the offensive line is still that bad that I think Deshaun Watson got sacked 62 times last year, which is ridiculous. Do you want to take a guess at what he's on track to hitting this year?
I'm going to guess that he's already been sacked. How many weeks? 4 weeks. I'm going to guess he's already been sacked 5 times, and he's projected to get sacked 50.
So I'm not sure how many he's been currently sacked, but he's on track to get sacked 72 times.
Holy shit, man.
Yeah. So this is a team that's tried to trade for their offensive line, but it is still that bad. He's going to get sacked more than last year if it continues at this rate.
That's terrible.
And we thought it was bad that Andrew Luck was retiring too early. The same thing's coming for Deshaun Watson if they don't do something about it immediately.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And
which is so sad to say considering he's one of the best quarterback up-and-coming talents, which, are going to be one of the few people that are probably going to be able to run around with Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, yeah.
To see the same end potentially as Andrew Luck is just oddly sad and disappointing.
And it is. And the writing's on the wall because he plays the exact same. He's 100% every play, and he doesn't like taking, if he can get an extra 2 yards by trying to go through the defender, he's going to go through the defender instead of just darting out and saving himself. And, that's how he plays. I love watching it. But you also got to, and even then, you just, I'm going to try and pull it up real quick to look at the QB pressures that he's already had. But just, I'm not actually I won't be able to find it in time. But the amount of times that he gets flushed out of the pocket and has to run for his life, just to save a play is ridiculous. Like you said, the Texans need to do something or it's just going to be Andrew Luck 2.0.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about the NFL or
No, I think I'm pretty much wrapped up. I was surprised the Lions, just doing an eye check really, I'm surprised the Lions were as close to the Chiefs as they were. I thought, the Pats-Bills game was pretty close. I was surprised the Titans beat the Falcons. Really, not too much else though.
No, there was a few upsets and a few things here and there, but nothing that really, kind of stood out, I guess, and, it was huge changing.
Yeah, because it's like,
at all.
It's like how big is a week 4 upset, you know what I mean? Like, we don't really know how good these teams are or how good they're meant to be yet. We're all still going
exactly.
off. But I do want to mention that big New York Giants got another win with Vanilla Vic, as he's being called in the Giants circle. Big Daniel Jones. Oh man, I loved it. My brother called him that the other day, and I was just cracking up at Vanilla Vic. But yeah, nah, that's it really. I think week 5 is going to be. This looks like to be a ton of good matchups, but knowing how it goes, I'll probably wake up Monday morning and it'll be all the same as last week, where none of the games panned out as they should. But yeah, I guess that's it. I'm wrapped up.
Yep.
If you're,
I think. Yeah, I'm good to go. I think I just wanted to quickly make mention that the winner of the 2019 Dally M Award has gone to Tedesco.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes, Cameron Smith in second place, Moses in third. So it was a bit of a tight one, but yes, Tedesco has won the 2019 Dally M Award.
Wow, was that the Eels winger, Moses, or Mitchell Moses?
No, Mitchell Moses.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fair cop.
Yeah, so I say we'll probably run through that next week, maybe the team that's come out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll, congratulations to him, and I guess we finish wrapping this up.
Congrats. So, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning into another week. I think it's funny that Brock, you said before we started recording, we'll probably keep this podcast under an hour, and we've now gone well over an hour and a half, but it's whatever.
Yeah, we were really confident that this was going to be a nice, short and sweet one. And then I think, the NRL talk went for like 40 minutes, so that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Apologies to everyone who's not digging the long podcast, but
yeah,
it's what you're receiving. Enjoy the content.
I think what I might start doing is chopping up some clips and chucking them up on the Insta page, or
I love it.
Maybe, do we have a Facebook page yet? We might start one. Put it up there.
It exists.
It does exist.
It's not spoken about to this point yet, though.
All right, fair cop. Well, we might get that off the ground. Try and get some more promotion. Get the name out
for
there.
Sure.
But I mean, thanks everyone for tuning in this week. Yeah, have a good week.
Have a good one. Cheers.
Damn, that was the worst time for my headphones to run flat. I apologize.